Well, again, thank you for hanging in there. We're now on the fourth of 5 short videos on bringing the Rockola back to life. We just discussed the selection system. Now we will be going to the fluorescent lights, troubleshooting, and also the amplifier. About 12 minutes, and then the fifth video, which will be the last, will be like a question and answer problem-solving session of the 10 most common themes that cause trouble in this jukebox, even after you've done the adjustments and cleaning. So let's get started with the fluorescent light diagnosis and issues, then the amp, and we'll go from there. Thank you. Now, the fluorescent lights that were in these machines are the old magnetic ballasts and the starters. I have not changed to electronic ballasts or LED. That is an option for some of you if you're having difficulty finding the original bulbs, ballasts, and starters. But when I've fixed these boxes, I have stayed with the original equipment, or as close to the original as possible, since these parts are still available in 2021, but going forward it may be a problem. But I told you that the broken parts were rare or uncommon in these boxes, but if you're going to have an issue, the ballasts certainly are going to be one area that you're likely to find a bad one. There's 2 in most of these boxes. There's 2 fluorescent lights. Each has their own ballast, and the odds are one of them is going to be shorted. Now, a ballast should have a resistance, the coil resistance of at least 20 to 25 ohms. If it does, then that ballast is still good and can be used, and you should check that, because as I told you, this is one of the most common reasons for the 5 amp fuse to blow in the power supply would be a shorted ballast. If your ballast reads 15 ohms or less, I would replace it. I wouldn't mess with it because these bulbs are getting expensive, and if you put a new fluorescent bulb in with a ballast that's shorting out, your life expectancy of that bulb is about 1 second, and you just wasted sometimes 15 bucks. So please replace the ballast when the ohm reading is under 15 ohms. They're already shorting out. Here's what an old one looks like, and this is a newer replacement for actually a smaller up to 20 watt bulb, but there is a place called the Ballast Shop that you can look at their website, and when you look at the T number on the bulb, you can usually match it to a magnetic ballast that will be sufficient. And these are your starters. It's going to be either an FS2, FS4, or FS25 starter. Okay, I think that's enough for the fluorescent lights. Here is the diagram. It's in the, now it may not be in the manual. I took this out of the wiring diagram that came separate from the manual. So if you want to look at this, it's pretty self-explanatory. Okay, let's go on to the amplifier next. And now we come to the most important part of the box, the amplifier and sound system. We didn't talk about the cartridge. It's a Shure 44 cartridge. The original cartridges are usually good, and the replacement needles are available on eBay, and I haven't had to mess with that too much. They sound good, period. The amplifiers, I may have misled you at the beginning of this talk by saying I got all 10 jukeboxes that I purchased back working, and that's true. I got them to select and to play, but the amplifiers, only 8 out of 10 came back to life. And the two that did not come back to life, I was not able to fix because I have only limited knowledge here. I do not know how to use an oscilloscope. I may be learning that soon, but I'm just using basic diagnostic tools to determine whether the amplifier is good. And if it is good, then I'm going to use a Bill Bickers. And God bless his soul. This man is wonderful. Here's his contact information down in Georgia. He'll answer the phone if you call. He sells a very nice capacitor kit because even if your amplifier sounds good, it's almost 50 years old, and the electrolytic can capacitors all should be replaced, period. And to do that, I think if you're starting out, order his kit. It's around $60 some, and it comes with all sorts of directions, and he'll answer the phone. I can't say enough nice about this man, and I would utilize his resources. He's been in business more than 50 years. He's wonderful. But having said that, not all amps will come back to life or be preserved by just simply replacing the can capacitors. So what I do when I get an unknown amplifier in or unknown jukebox, first of all, what do? Check the fuses. Okay, there's 2 fuses up here, 3 amp slow blow. If those fuses are blown or were overfused or something's changed there, ooh, that's a red flag, and I might not be so inclined to replace capacitors alone and waste $60 if there's a major problem with the output transistors. The transistors and the components of these amplifiers have been very, very resilient and very high quality over the years. But if something goes wrong, it's usually in the higher voltage output sections. In the heat sink, there's 2 transistors there, and there's, I believe, 4 transistors on each output stage. Those are the ones that I check with my multimeter, and there is a diode checker on there. Basically, a transistor is 2 diodes. I am not qualified to tell you how to check these, but I check them with just my diode checker. I'm checking them in circuit, so it's not as accurate, but if you check 4 or 5 amplifiers and check the output transistors and measure the voltage drop from the base to the emitter and base to collector and compare it over several amplifiers, you get a feel for what the values should be in the amplifiers that work and in the amplifiers that have bad transistors. If an output transistor is bad, I stop right there. I'm not going to tackle it. I'm going to send it to Bill Bickers, and he's going to charge $300, but it's going to be done right, and you'll have a good amp. But if the output transistors do check good with my diode checker, then I assume that the amp is going to be good, and I go ahead and replace all the capacitors in Bill Bickers' kit. And most of them are in this capacitor board here. This is rather complex and daunting. I would say to you, you're going to have to take several photographs of where these wires go before you take out that board. And then you have to have good soldering technique and just go for it. You also have to replace the 2200 microfarad power capacitor over here. The other boards don't have nearly as many capacitors to replace. The tone control unit up here, which has the mute relay on it, does not have any capacitors to replace. Underneath the channel here, the output boards have a couple capacitors to replace, and then if the transistors are good in the heat sink, there's no capacitors there. Now, 8 out of 10 of my amplifiers that I thought were good after I checked the output transistors, I replaced the capacitors with Bill's kit, and they sound great, and I've had no problems. one of them had a short that I wasn't able to diagnose. I'm going to have my buddy who knows how to run an oscilloscope see if he can fix it. Because, gosh, I love Bill Bickers, but I don't want to spend $300 if I don't have to. If I can fix this myself for $60, I'm going to do it. And I'm telling you, most of the time you can. But you've got to be careful with your polarity. And just take your time. And what else can I say? They're pretty good quality components. There are other issues arising now after 50 years. You're getting some micro fractures of some of the soldering joints, and that's where an oscilloscope could determine where your problem could be. And sometimes you just have to resolder these circuit boards where they appear to be soldered. You just simply melt them and resolder them again. I'm getting a little out of my area of expertise here. I'm just telling you this is a very important component. If you don't feel comfortable, send it to Bill Bickers. He'll do a good job for you. It's worth it. But if you do feel comfortable and your capacitors seem, your output transistors seem to be okay, and there's nothing wrong with diving in and doing this yourself. It's very rewarding to get good sound for $60. Now, one other thing. We didn't talk about the speakers. The two woofers are 8 ohm speakers. The two tweeters are 16 ohms. If you look on the front door, you'll see a capacitor over both tweeters. This is called a crossover capacitor. I forgot to replace these in the first couple boxes, and then I lost channel one day and asked on the boards, oh, what happened here? And I was remiss in not replacing these. These should be replaced with a metallized polypropylene crossover capacitor. You can get them from Parts Express. They're expensive. They're about $4 each. This is what they look like. They're fairly large, but these are non-polarized, 8.2 microfarad, 250 volt. Do this. Do not omit this step because it will hurt your speakers long term. Sure, you can get by for a while. That's all I'm going to say on the amplifier. I know it's very important, but my knowledge is limited here. I can only do, capacitor soldering. I can't do extensive diagnostic work, and that's why I've referred you to this site and this man who has been and will be wonderful, hopefully for the many more years. Okay, that's it. We're going to finish up in a minute here when I get my questions and answers together for common problems on these jukeboxes. This will complete the fourth short video. The last video will be a question and answer, problem solving video, and then we'll be finished. Thank you for your patience and viewing.